Hey, hi everyone, and welcome again to the today's Azure Community APAC session on conditional access. And appreciate you guys taking the time to be joining the session and learning something new with the 1 hour of today. And today we have Sergi, who is a Microsoft MVP and also an MCT, who is going to help us better understand about conditional access. He's going to give us a lot more demos and help us understand what is conditional access. So yeah, more about himself, he will explain it. So before we get into the session, I just wanted to explain a few things about today's session. The session is going to be recorded and will be available in our YouTube channel, which you can use to watch it again, or there is a couple of other webinars and training which you can watch it. Secondly, there is certificate of participation, which you can receive after the today's session, which I'll be sharing the a link for you to receive your certificate of participation. So be sure to fill it out so that you will receive certificate of participation. And if you're somebody who is joining for the first time, please do consider join the community so that you can participate in the upcoming sessions as well as training that we'll be conducting for free. So yeah, without any more delay, we can get into the session, and I'm moving the mic to Sergi to get started and give an intro about himself and go into the session. Over to you.
All right, thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are going to start. We have only 1 hour, so I'm going to be. I'm not going to talk too much in the beginning because I have many things to show you. So, what I'm going to show you, what this session is all about. Let me just quickly explain you why do we have this session. First of all, this session, according to the request, is entry level. So regardless of your experience, you should be you should feel comfortable here because I'm not going to go deeper into tokens or something like that. So a little bit more like more basics. So you should be okay, even if you don't work with Azure or any other Microsoft services, security services for a long time. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to show you conditional access and many signals and how do they work, and when you use them to protect your Microsoft 365 for Azure services. So this session will be based on live demos, and I would say that will be the key of the session. So my goal was to show you, not just tell you that, look, there's a signal number one, signal number two, number three, but show you most of them. Unfortunately, we're limited in time. I will not be able to show you all those signals, but in 1 hour, I can fit a lot. So that's the plan for today. I'm going to show you a few slides in the beginning just to set up the context. And then I'm going to switch to demos and show you many different things about conditional access and related services. Let me say a few words about myself. My name is Sergey, security consultant, instructor. I speak at conferences a lot. Security conference like DEF CON, Hacker Halted, B-Sides, and Black Hat. Also Microsoft conferences. Most of the time I speak in Europe or in America. Not yet in Asia, I think. Maybe some remote, but not in person. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, you can do it. So that's the link to my LinkedIn. I also have Microsoft. I'm also Microsoft MVP in security and many other certifications, not only Microsoft certifications, but also security certifications like OSCP and so on. So, and what I prefer to do, I prefer to show live demos. Yeah, so let's do it. Let's do it. Before I start show you live demos, I would like to set up the context. So that's why I'm going to show you a few slides first. After that, live demos. So please wait for a few minutes. When we're talking about conditional access, before we start discuss conditional access, we need to understand the idea of zero trust. Zero trust. So zero trust. And to discuss zero trust, I would like to go back to the past and just quickly remind you, if you work in security for a long time, for 10 or more years, you remember the approach that we had in security before, trusted network. the idea of trusted network, that we have our on-prem network, trusted network. So it was our security perimeter. And so we had devices inside of our network, so people work from the office. Yeah. So we had applications they connect to, and applications also deployed inside of the network on our servers inside of the network. The users also use corporate devices and so on. But nowadays it's different. So first of all, we use different devices. We work with cloud applications that deployed somewhere outside of our network. Users work from everywhere. Like, again, probably some of you work from home or from business trips or from other places. And so that's why we cannot really rely on this old strategy, trusted network. Now we need to switch to something different. So we need to network still can be used as one of the signals, but we cannot fully rely on the network because we don't always work from this network. So applications outside of the network, users outside of the network, so we can't really completely rely on the network. And because of that, by the way, attackers also shift their attacks from network-based attacks, like when they try to compromise the network and then try to lateral move inside of the network. They also move to identity-based attacks when they try to compromise user, regardless of user location, regardless of user the network user belong to. So that's why we can see increased number of identity-based attacks. So that's where Microsoft offers another strategy called Zero Trust. So move the focus from trusted network to something different. And so according to Zero Trust, we should not trust anyone and verify everything. And Zero Trust is based on 3 core principles. First principle is verify explicitly, where we always validate all available data points, including user location, identity, device health, and so on. So then use least privilege access, which is like give access only when user need, and only for the time period when user need access, and assume breach, which means like segment network. That's where we use network, by the way. Encrypt everything. Encrypt our data, encrypt our sessions, and monitor and try to detect the fact that we've been compromised. So 3 core principles, and the service we're going to discuss, conditional access, will be one of the key to verify explicitly. So the first principle, verify explicitly, is really based on conditional access. If we want to implement this principle, one of the key services will be conditional access. So conditional access, that's the Microsoft Zero Trust Policy Engine, which takes signals from different sources and then enforce policy decisions based on those signal matches. So, for example, let's take a look here. We have user and location. So, if users like sign in from let's say from Philippines, then we can require MFA. But if users sign in from, let's say, United Kingdom, then we can block access. Of course, I'm simplifying now. Policy usually more complicated, but just an example, we can use some signals from the user side, and we can apply different policy decisions, or how we also call controls. So that's what conditional access is. I also have a next slide, which will be more relevant after I'm starting to show you demos, because there are many things that may look a bit complicated. Let me show you all of them. And they will become a bit more clear when I'm going to show you demos. So let me go back like that. And let me switch to demo now. I'll go back to this slide later on during the demo. So, here I can see my Azure portal. Conditional access is the part of Azure AD, and maybe you heard that Azure AD is becoming Microsoft Entra ID. So Microsoft, how they change names. So they are changing the name to Microsoft Entra ID. In many documents, it's still Azure Active Directory in many documents, even on the portal. So currently, I don't know which name to use, so probably you will hear from me both names, Microsoft Entra ID and Azure Active Directory. But soon, probably, maybe by the end of the year, I don't know when, but we'll completely move to this name. We'll forget this old name and move to the new name completely. I don't know when, but they say just eventually we're going to move to the new name. But currently, even many documents on Microsoft Learn, they are still still use name Azure Active Directory. So conditional access is the part of Azure Active Directory. I'm here in Azure Active Directory, just in case if you don't know how to get there, you may click on the hamburger button and find out Azure Active Directory. Now, I'm scrolling down and click on security. And find here conditional access. Click on that. And conditional access is really based on policies. We talked about that before when we saw the slide. So if I click on the policy, I can see the list of my policies. So first of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to log in as user Michael Smith to Azure portal. And you will see that I don't have any restrictions. So I use username, I use password, and I was able to log in without any restrictions, any issues, no problems. Now, I would like to control this kind of connections. We can do it with conditional access policy. And let me create a new policy. Now let's take a look at different components. First of all, let me quickly show you what we can really implement with conditional access. So if I'm going to grant here, I can find different enforcement. So first of all, what I can do, I can block access based on the signals if I want. I can allow access, but require additional checks like multi-factor authentication or more specific authentication methods. We'll see later what it is, or require device to be marked as compliant, or require device to be marked as hybrid Azure AD joined, which is a bit legacy now, but still used by some companies, and so on. So we may apply some requirements. One of the most basic requirements that I can very quickly show you, we're going to use some other requirements, but let me start from the most simple. And the most simple will be require multi-factor authentication. Let me check the box here and click select. And of course, it's not enough for the policy. I need to also configure users, target resources, and optionally configure conditions. So let me click on users. So here I need to choose which user will be in the scope of my policy. It may be, I can choose all users. I can choose single user if I want to choose single user. I can choose the group of users or select a role if I want to apply policy to administrators. So that will be up to me. I'm going to choose only single user, Michael Smith, and I'm going to click select. Also, what I can do, I can choose larger scope, like all users or group of users, and then I can exclude users I don't want to have in this policy. I don't want to have policy assigned to. So I can exclude users from the policy if I want. By the way, just in case, if I do something like that, include Michael Smith, and then in the same policy, exclude Michael Smith, user will be excluded. So exclusion is going to win, is going to take precedence. So I can do it. Technically, I can do it. Doesn't make any sense, of course. But if I do something like that, policy will not apply to user. Just for your reference. All right, I'm going to choose only single user Michael Smith. I'm not going to have any exclusions. Next step is to choose target resource. target resource. It may be all cloud applications. So it means any sign of the user will require, so the policy applies to any sign of this user. Or I can choose specific application and select application from the list. I want to choose management portal and click select. Slightly later, I'm going to give you some commentaries about that and that, but for now, let's keep it simple. So, and the last step, for now, I'm going to also ignore conditions. And for as the last step, I'm going to enforce the policy. So I'm going to turn it on and click create. Oh, I must give a name. Let's say APAC demo. So policy has been created. Please keep in mind, it takes from 30 to more seconds to really enforce the policy. It might take 30 seconds, it might take 60, it might take a few minutes. So there's no SLA how fast policy applies. In the real world, it will not be a big problem. But of course, for the demo, sometimes I need to sign in, policy will not apply, I need to sign out and sign again. So please understand that. So sometimes it may not work right away, and I need to sign in multiple times before policy is going to apply. All right, now let's repeat sign in. Let's repeat my sign in. Oh, first of all, let me sign in to office.com because our policy applies only to sign-ins to Azure portal. So Office 365 portal should not be affected. So here I should sign in without any MFA request. Yep, no questions. But if I try to sign into Azure portal, oh, look at this. So currently policy wasn't yet completely applied, but they see the policy was changed. And so I can't get really the access token. So let me click sign in again. And look at this. Now I need to provide some additional information. So I was able to sign in now as user Michael Smith, but policy was very, very simple. So we didn't really use conditions. So this policy also used only simple signals, only username and application, target application. That's it. So let's try to add more signals. So we'll make this policy more flexible. Let me click on conditions again. Let's take a look at different signals. For now, I'm going to ignore user risk and sign-in risk because they require to connect other service, and I would like to explain the service slightly later. So I'm trying to keep it simple. Let me go back to those signals slightly later. So for now, let's take a look at other signals. Let's take a look at device platform. So device platform will take information from client application about the platform. So if I connect from Android or from iOS, from Windows or Windows Phone, if someone still use that, Mac or Linux. And again, as usual, I can include or I can exclude. So I can say apply policy to any device platform, but exclude, let's say Android. So in that case, I will be requested to use MFA from any platform except Android. Let's try that. Let me click done and click save. And again, it takes time before policy applies. So probably need to talk a bit. Yeah, maybe the good idea is to first configure the policy and then explain the condition, because it will take some additional time to policy to apply. Again, I can apply policy to a specific platform like Android, iOS, Windows, or I can say apply to any platform but exclude specific platform. What is very important? Information about the platform will be taken from a user agent. So, and you know that user agent can be easily changed. So you should not really rely on this device platform condition completely, because user agent can be easily changed. Let me first show you the effect, and then I'll be able to change the user agent in my browser. Let me first sign in from Windows. Nothing. One moment. Let me sign out first. So let me provide a password. And again, as I mentioned before, so when you change the policy, it might take some time before policy really applies. So now we somewhere in the process, policy somewhere processing in the background. Let me try again. Let me go back to Azure. Oh, look at this. So it requires MFA. Now, if I say sign out, and I'm going to change my user agent. I'm going to say that my user agent is from on Android. And let me just click refresh and try to sign in again. This time, I should bypass the restriction. Let's try. Oh, look at this. No question. Because now Azure ID, Enter ID, thinks that I'm connecting from Android. Let me change it back to Edge. And take a look at the next condition. I hope that was clear. Let me just turn it off. Click done, click save. Just want to make sure that different conditions will not be mixed in my demos. And let me just click on location. Again, let me quickly configure it. And then I'm going to explain the idea of. So next condition is based on locations. So it means that the network user connecting from, country user connecting from, and so on. So before you configure a condition, you must go back. To conditional access and find here named locations. So and here I have a few locations created. Let me create new location. Location can be based on country or just public IP address. Let me create country location. And here's the list of countries. So I can choose, let's take countries we have here. I know we have Philippines. What else? Maybe Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. Singapore. And so what I need to do, I need to give name, like APAC. And the most important, I need to choose how we're going to determine the location. So the most simple way is to do it by using a public IP address of the user. But of course, if user use VPN, we can easily change it. We can easily change public IP address. More accurate way to do it, but a bit more complicated to configure, is called GPS coordinates. In this case, a user mobile device that has application authenticator installed will send the coordinates to the cloud, and so that based on those coordinates, I will be able to detect user location. It may give you some false positives. When you travel, I don't know, from Singapore to Malaysia on the ground, because it's quite close by, and so sometimes it may still may still think that you're in the previous country. So also may not be perfect when you travel and between different countries. So we create new named location, and we can use those named locations in our policies. I have two named locations. One is Netherlands, another one is UK. So let me use those named locations in my policy. So I configure condition. And again, I may apply policy only to specific location, or I can exclude specific location. How it may work. So for example, let's say you are from Singapore, and you want to allow your users to work only from Singapore and Malaysia, let's say, only two countries. So users, so other countries like, I don't know, Australia, Indonesia, or any other countries, UK, you don't want to allow sign-ins. So in this case, what you may do, you may say, I would like to block access. Click select. And you can exclude a location you trust to. So in this case, you can sign in only from specific location. Here, only from Netherlands. Let me click save. Let me click save. Click on save. And let's see the effect. I'm going to sign in as user Michael Smith. And look at this. You cannot access this right now. So access was blocked. So in that case, if someone is trying to access from the location that you don't trust, you may block. But if I'm trying to sign in from Netherlands, let's say portal, Azure.com, sign again as Michael Smith, and provide a password. Yeah, again, policy is still evaluating. Let me just try again. It requires MFA, so probably that's the old policy. That's the old policy is still taking an effect. It might happen. It might happen when we make those changes. And again, for sometimes show those demos may be a bit tricky because we need to repeat that multiple times. Let me try it again to make sure that I can sign in without any other questions, only username and only password. Yeah, so no questions. And if I look at my IP, I can see the country is Netherlands. So that is location-based conditions. And again, you can use them to block specific location if you have some locations you don't trust, or you may block all other locations and allow specific location. It's not only about blocks. So of course you may use other conditions, but block is the most obvious. Quite often companies that have very strict requirements for some applications, they use that block policy for locations. What you can also do, you may combine different controls, but we're going to cover it a bit later. And so location can be also used to combine controls. All right, so let's try to turn it off. And let's take a look and client applications. So here, that's the application that client use on the client. I mean, on the client side. Do I connect from the browser or from mobile application or desktop client? Or maybe I connect from legacy authentication clients. So it means authentication clients that do not support multi-factor authentication. So how we usually use that control? So the most common case for this control is to block legacy authentication clients. So we uncheck those boxes and we check only those two, and we choose block behavior. So you may find here, by the way, if you look at my policies, there's a policy called block legacy. By the way, that's my demo tenant, so I'm not trying to give the correct names, but in the real world, in the production, you should give, of course, more accurate names because you may have a bunch of policies. And here you may find that I have those. I block legacy authentication clients. So we use client applications for to block legacy authentication clients most of the time. And the last condition is to device filter. So what we can do, we can use different device filters, that devices that joined to our Azure AD. And so we can use device properties to filter them out. So it means that we can use device properties for additional as the signal. Let's take a look. So we can include or vice versa exclude device from the policy. Let me say that I would like to, let's say I would like to go back to my controls. I would like to acquire MFA again. At the same time, I would like to make it convenient for users. So if user connected from corporate device, I would like to bypass MFA. So what I'm doing here, I say exclude device that owned by the company. So if user connected from personal device, user will be requested for MFA. But if user is connected from corporate device, we should bypass MFA. So let me try to do it. So now I'm connected from personal device. Let me try to sign in. It should ask me for MFA. It should ask me for MFA. As usual, maybe some old policy will block me out. It asked me for MFA. That's my personal device. Let's try one more device. So this device is also personal. If you remember here, I bypassed MFA without, I bypassed MFA. Let's try again. So in this policy, I will be requested for MFA again. Yes. All right. So it asked me for MFA, but now I would like to connect from corporate device. How can I prove that device is corporate? Let me go back to Azure AD. And go to devices. All devices. I can see this device, CAVM. And this device, if I click on the manage, I can see ownership is corporate. So CAVM1. Let me jump back to the device. Let me prove you that that's the device CAVM1. Yeah, CAVM1. Let me just go to Azure portal. By the way, also because this user is signed into the device, I should sign in. It should also work. It should also use single sign-on. So I should sign in without any questions. Not only MFA, but also password. Of course. Let's try again. And look at that. I sign in to Azure portal, without anything, without MFA request, without anything, because device was corporate, not personal. All right, so here are controls that basic controls we have that built into conditional access. So those controls will work without any additional services. But conditions. At the same time, we have two more conditions that I ignored in the beginning. Let me quickly explain you about those conditions. So user risk and sign-in risk. Risk-based conditions, they can be used if you are using one more service. Oh, sorry. Wrong link. if you're using one more service called identity protection. So you may find it right below conditional access. So right below, you may find identity protection. So that identity protection will calculate risks so we'll be able to evaluate risks for users and for their sign-ins. And so those risks can be used as conditions. So if I click on the risky users, you may find here I have one risky user called Michael Smith, of course. And I can see user at risk, and the risk level is high. So we may find here in risk detections why user risk is high. And last 7 days, nothing bad happened. But if I look at the like last 90 days, I can find many weird things like malicious IP address, anonymous IP address, or password spread attack. So I tried many different attacks on this, sign-ins and attacks on this account. So I can see the user is risky. What I can do, I can go back to my conditions and I can say, if user risk is high, I can require something. So the most common requirements is to require password change. The most common requirements for it is require password change because password change can remediate user risk. To be fair, I don't want to do it because I don't want to remediate my user. I'm going to use them, and I'm going to use the user in other demos. So let me just block access. So I would say if user is risky, at high risk, I don't want to allow this user to connect. So I don't want to give access to this user, give access token. So now we know that user Michael Smith is risky, and so risk will become one of the conditions, user risk. And we're going to block access if user is risky. Let's try. Let's do it from here. So we had single sign-on here. Oh, look at this. Oh, MFA? Really? Why MFA? Just in case, let me approve the request to avoid any blocks later on. Okay, so account is blocked. Now user, because user is risky, user will not be able to connect, to sign in, because user at high risk. And again, you can see here restricted at risk users. And again, the most common thing that the most smart way to use that is to require password change. But again, I don't want to remediate because password change, if you enable self-service password Z in parallel, will be able to remediate user, but I don't want to remediate, to be fair. That's why I just blocked it. All right, so that was user risk. Let me turn it off. And go back to sign-ins. So one more risk, maybe sign-in risk. So in this case, we go, regardless of user risk, we're looking for specific risk from the user side, from the user sign-in. So user may be not at risk, doesn't really matter, but we're looking for dangerous and suspicious attributes. So maybe users sign in from weird location, like the provider is known, that provider is used for botnet attacks, for botnet, or users using Tor browser. Nowadays, Microsoft is trying to block Tor everywhere, not only using policies, but let's try. So let me try to simulate it. I will first sign in to Azure portal again. And no issues. I was able to sign in. And now let me do the same, but from, damn it. It's working. But what I want to do right now, I would like to sign in from Tor browser. Tor browser is definitely sign-in risk because Tor browser is known, the anonymous browser, and quite often used by attackers. So let's take a look. If I try to sign in from Tor, and user account is temporarily locked to prevent unauthorized use. Account isn't locked. If I look at the my user list, it should be okay. Let's take a look. If I look at them, M Smith and account enabled, but I cannot sign in because that's the risk. That's the risk. To be fair, I can't tell you for sure if that's the risk from Microsoft because they start to implement that in Azure AD by themselves, or because of my policy. It's really hard to understand. I can try to sign into OfficeCom. Request is blocked. Oh, thank you. Microsoft doesn't like Tor browser, and so sometimes they block it. Now OfficeCom doesn't allow it, but portals still work, but they don't allow me to sign in. So sign-in risk, they based on the fact that user may use some weird attributes. Now let's take a look at the slide. So we can use different signals from users. We can use signals from identity protection, and so that will be session risk and so on. We can provide multi-factor authentication, even third-party MFA. So that's the signals available to us. All right, now let's take a look. What kind of controls we can apply? What kind of controls we can apply? One more signal that you're going to see them in controls is about compliance. Now let's take a look at what kind of controls we can apply to our sign-ins. If I go back to, let me close all of that. If I go back to my policy, let me turn off all conditions. Let me remove all conditions. Click Done. Click Save. And in my previous demo, you saw only basic controls like block access or require MFA. But what else we can do? We can also require what is called authentication strength. So you might think about this like MFA, but more specific. More specific factors. So I can use like password plus SMS, so basic MFA, or I can require authenticator only, or I can require passwordless with FIDO keys. So I can specify what kind of MFA, what kind of authentication I may require. So again, it looks a bit, it may be similar to MFA, but more specific. So you may choose here that you want to use more stronger authentication method, because when you just enable MFA, users free to choose the method, SMS, phone calls, and so on. But here we can specify what exactly we can require from user. One more thing that I really want to show you, because this one is quite interesting and needs to be demonstrated, is the required device to be marked as compliant. Let me select and save. So what it means, device marked as compliant? It means that if we are using another service, let me go back to slides. We use another service called Intune, Microsoft Intune. We can Intune can share information about device compliance with Azure AD, and compliance state can be used as the condition. So let's take a look. Let me first go to Intune and show you compliance state of the device. If I go to devices and click on my Windows devices, there's a one device, CAVM, and the compliance state is non-compliant. Let's take a look why. Let me click on the device and click on compliance, device compliance. So here's the policy called firewall policy that says if firewall is turned off, device is not compliant. So device is not compliant. Let me go back to the device and really quickly show you my firewall state. So firewall is turned off. That's why device is not compliant. Of course, it may not be only firewall. So firewall is quickly to demonstrate it may be something else. There are maybe viruses on the machine, or it may be an antivirus database that wasn't updated, or antivirus not Defender but third-party antivirus, or device doesn't have encryption, and so on. There are many there are many attributes can be used to evaluate compliance. I'm using firewall because it's quite simple to demonstrate. So now I can see device not compliant. So let me try to sign in from this device. And look at that. Device does not meet your organization compliance requirements. That's why. I did not. I couldn't sign in. All right, so let me uncheck that. Select, save. Oh, sorry, I need to choose something. Okay, so next one, require hybrid Azure AD join. So that's it. That's quite legacy. So one of the ways to join devices is called hybrid Azure AD join, when your device is joined to multiple locations, so to on-prem AD and registered in Azure AD, and so you may require that. Nowadays, that's quite legacy. But still companies use that. So you may require that the device must be joined to multiple domains. I mean, on-prem domain and registered in the cloud domain, cloud AD. So next one, you can require approved client application. That may be useful if you are for mobile devices. If you try to allow users to sign in only from approved client applications like Outlook. So read email only from Outlook, not from the native mobile application to read emails, but only from Outlook. So like open Word documents only in Word and so on. So require only approved client application. Not really all Word documents, but if I'm choosing here Azure Portal, so the target application Azure Portal, so it means that I must open Azure Portal only from Edge browser, but not from any others. So if I click on them, I can see a list of applications that are approved. And so Edge is one of the approved applications. So one more, require app protection policy. That's also from mobile devices. So require that application that you work with, for example, Outlook, must have like some kind of DLP policy. So you cannot copy from Outlook to WhatsApp and so on. Again, so those two policies quite often are used for mobile to work with mobile devices. Require password change. We discussed that it's quite useful in the risk-based policies. Require password change. In that case, user can remediate himself or herself using password change. One last thing, maybe you haven't seen before, like make your choice. What is that? Make your choice. So make your choice was something I did myself. I create myself. That's the governance action. Let me go back to Azure AD and click on the identity governance. And here I can find terms of use. So you can create your own terms of use, some kind of legal requirements that user must accept before they start working with your policy. Sorry, not with the policy, but with your application. So your policy will require to accept some kind of requirements, some kind of terms of use before users start working. How it may look like. So I already have a policy for that called Make Your Choice. Really to show you that, I need to create new user. Let me create new user called APAC. Copy password, display name also APAC, and quickly create. Let me copy this password to my notepad. Now I'm going to add this user to the policy. Come on. Oh, great. Okay, so user is there. Now, yeah, I can add this user to the policy, click save. And what I would like to do now, I would like to sign in as user APAC. I'm still M. Smith. Let me close all those previous windows. And what I want to do, I would like to copy this username and the password. I must change the password, of course, for the first time. And look at that. So first sign in, it tells me that I need to accept something. If I try to accept, they say review it first. So I click on that. Master review, of course, maybe any text you want. It's just a PDF document, so you may place your pictures, text, whatever you like. And only after that, I can start to work. So that was terms of use. So we had a look on controls. One last thing about controls, what we can do, we can require, so before that, I show you all controls and conditions separately. But what you can also do, you can combine them together. So for example, you may require multiple conditions. So you may require location. So do you remember I showed you like user from Netherlands can bypass MFA, or user from using that use corporate device can bypass MFA, and so on. Maybe those conditions are too permissive because even Singapore is maybe not the largest country, but still a lot of people work there, and someone may try to get unauthorized access. So you may combine conditions together. So you may say, I would like to require like some multiple things. So let's say I can bypass like using Netherlands and device equals to company. And so you may combine them together, conditions. And actual controls that you will require also may be combined. And so you may require one control or require all controls. And so let's try one control. So let me just remove all conditions. And now it may require compliance and multi-factor authentication. Click Save. And let's take a look what is going to happen. So I'm requiring only one control. So if user is signing from compliant device, no MFA questions, no questions about MFA. But if device is not compliant, I will be asked for MFA. So now I have a choice what to choose. Let's try. Now it should ask me for MFA because device is not compliant. Of course, eh, so it takes time. I think that's quite clear what will happen. So now it will ask me for MFA. So we have 6 minutes left, and I would like to show you one last thing, and then we're going to have some quick Q&A. Let me jump back to slides. And before, so we take a look. We had a look on the different conditions, but one of the things that also we may do is to use integration with other applications. And one of the other services, one of them will be Defender for Cloud Apps. And so a feature called Conditional Access App Control can be used for additional to apply additional restrictions. So let's take a look what all of this mean. So if I click on the session control, you will find a number of additional controls for session. What does it mean session? So it means that user already signed in, but inside of the session, the session will be limited. So it will be limit control access based on the session controls to enable limited experience within specific cloud application. So before that, we allow access or deny access. I mean, or maybe require MFA or something else. But after user signed in, no other restrictions. In session control, we can apply additional restrictions inside of the session. So we can, for example, kick user out every, let's say, 8 hours. So there are a number of controls that we have here, but it's not really, I can call basic, but because by limited time, I will not be able to show you them all. What I want to show you is conditional access app control that we can use with integration with Defender for Cloud Apps. Let me quickly sign in to, let me do it from here. Let's say office.com. So no sign-ins, just single sign-in should work. Now let me go to Power BI. And look at this. So it says access to Power BI is monitored. It's optional thing. I may not show it, but let me go to Power BI. And now let me try to open the report. I think it's empty report. And try to download the report. Download the report. Click download. Whoops, no way. Download blocked because of the Defender for Cloud App policy. So that was the conditional access app control. Let's try something else. Let me try to go to home. And let me try to copy this part. Let me click copy and look at this. I can't really copy. It doesn't allow me to copy. Okay, if I try, if I tap Control C, nope, action is blocked by your organization security policy. And so we can apply additional restrictions on that. All right, one last slide. Oh, sorry, one last slide. Licensing. To have the service implemented, you need to have Azure AD Premium P1, which, to be fair, I copied that from the Microsoft website, and they still use old terminology, but nowadays I must use two names. So Azure AD Premium P1 or Microsoft Entra ID P1. Let me run it again. Microsoft Entra ID P1. Also, Microsoft 365 Business Premium. If you want to implement risk-based policies, like I showed before with the risk-based, you need to have P2 license for Azure AD or Microsoft Entra ID, how it's called now. And if you are using compliance with Intune or Defender for Cloud Apps for session control, conditional access app control, then you need to have license for those products as well. So there are a bunch of licenses that you need to, it depends how you want to configure it. So not too much, but 2 minutes for your questions, if you have them, of course. So I can see the first question, report only. I can see the first question at least, as I scrolled about the report only. So what report only means? When you configure conditional access, you configure restrictions. And you probably don't want your users to, have access to be blocked right away, because users will not be happy if you just configure the policy and some users get blocked. So first of all, like it's like the best practice for any implementation. You run some kind of audit mode when you don't enforce, but you just monitor. So you enable a report only mode, then you will be able to find in logs if policy was applied or not to user sign-ins. So here you may understand, was it something legit, or I misconfigured the policy? And after you monitor your policy for some time period, you may decide, all right, now I'm moving to enforced mode and I'm going to really enforce it. So that's the good practice the best practice to start from report mode. Start from report mode. Any other questions? At least I don't see anything in the chat.
I think that was it. I think there was okay. There is one new question.
Is there a way I can check when is the policy applied? So there are two things you can do. So first of all, what you can do, you may monitor the. So it depends if you want to monitor the specific sign-in or just a policy. So for example, you may go to list of policies and click on what if and try to specify different conditions. So let's say user, let's say APAC, and let's say what kind of policy applied to user? Block access, yes. Make your choice, yes. Why block access? I'm not sure, but we need to check other conditions. So you may specify conditions and check if access was applied. Or if you want to check it for specific sign-ins that already happened, for example, user get blocked, and you want to understand why. So you can go to sign-in logs. Sign-in logs. Moment. Yeah. So you may go to sign-in logs. And here you may find sorry, sign-in logs. One moment. Let me check if that was okay. So conditional access, success. Failure. So you may find if policy was applied or you may find not applied if policy not applied. Sign-in logs, that's where you should do it. How many days the blocked access account will be unblocked? The policy will not block your account. It will not allow you to sign in until you have this kind of attributes. So for example, if you have a high risk level, until you have high risk level, you cannot sign in, but it will not really block your account. So and again, if you remember, after I use block policy, then I used other policy and I wasn't blocked, and my account's still enabled. It doesn't really block the account. It blocks your sign-in. It will not give you access token, but it will not block your account. It will not, so this block will not persist. It depends on the attributes you're using, on the signals you're using. If you change your signals, if your location now became different or your risk level became different, you won't be blocked. You can sign in again. You can try to sign in. Can I also notify someone via email for the confirmation of applied policy? So I don't know this kind of feature directly, but what you can do if you really want to do it, you may gather logs in Sentinel. So it's all of this is based on sign-in logs. So you can gather those logs in Sentinel, and conditional access will be one of the attributes. And then in Sentinel, you may organize any kind of notification because it's all based on KQL language. You can create some kind of alerts, and maybe Sentinel. It may be even just log analytics where you gather logs from Azure AD. And then create alert policy that will send a notification. But there's no like one single button that say notify someone about the policy. All right, yeah, why not? All right, thank you. I'm glad that wasn't in vain. I was hacked. My Facebook. I need and personal email. How can we help you? I can say sorry that you've been hacked. Change your password. Use multi-factor authentication, conditional access. Anyway, so yeah, Facebook. That's the Facebook. Can I ask a copy of your slides, the steps to follow, what you have discussed to us to keep safe your Microsoft account and Teams account? Copy of slides, not a problem. To be fair, I took all those slides from Microsoft reference security architecture. One moment. Microsoft cybersecurity reference architecture. That's where I took those slides from. So I didn't draw those things myself, to be fair. So you may find those slides there. The steps to follow what you have discussed to us to keep safe our Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams account. So one moment. Azure AD best practices. This one, your question about what to do, that link, here they give you the bunch of best practices, including, by the way, conditional access, turn on conditional access, and which policy you need to enable in conditional access. So that's some kind of best practices. Because I hope the demo, step-by-step demo I showed you, gave you some ideas how to do it, but of course you need to make a decision what to implement. And so this article may give you some ideas, at least basic ideas what to implement. Last question, how do you educate end users about benefits and importance of conditional access? To be fair, I don't educate users about conditional access only, but sometimes my customers ask me to provide some kind of awareness training, and I do many things at a time. So I show. So I usually I listen from my customer what exactly they want. They want to educate you. They want to users to know. And so phishing and maybe legacy applications and don't save passwords in the browser and so on. And then we decide how to organize demo. But end users about conditional access, how I usually convince. So quite often the biggest problem with users, they may not understand why do they need to spend extra time on sign-in. Why do they need to install application on their personal phone? Why? And so quite often I use some kind of offensive demos. I show how things can get compromised. And that's why they need to use MFA. I would say the most simple demo you may try is to show how to easily extract passwords from the browser. So if they save passwords in the browser, or maybe, do you know this? What is your password on YouTube? I'm not going to show you the full video, but you can watch it yourself. That's how users react when someone asks them about their password. So you may explain them how unsecure people may be and how unsecure some basic technologies can be. That's why we need to use some additional requirements. Can you resend the presence link? Presence link, again, presentation. Which of the conditional access provides most secured login access? Ooh. Do you mean which control or what? Oh, by the way, uh, based on your question, you remind me one thing. So there's one more thing that you may find in conditional access, templates. So you may find here some templates, suggested templates. You can create new policy from template. And so using templates, you can try to, you can even click on all templates. And they give you some templates for the most common cases. So like block legacy authentication, require multi-factor authentication for all users, like that. So you may also use templates. In the beginning, it may help you. But which one is the most secure? If you block access, that will be the most secure, of course. Quite often, by the way, use block access is not the best idea because block is block. Quite often, we recommend to use something like maybe compliance or so requires something not that restrictive like block access. But if you want the most secure, block access will be the most secure. So you may say login only from Philippines, all other countries block. So, but then if a user going to travel to another country like South Korea, they won't be able to sign in. All right. For that moment, we run out of questions. I'm not in a hurry, so I can wait. But if you don't have anything else, we can start to wrap up.
Yeah, I think there is no more question regarding the today's session. I think we went through a lot of question as well. Yeah, if there is a else we can wrap up. And thank you, Sergi, for the session. I think it was pretty detailed about the basics on conditional access, and we went through all the demo. Demos is the best part, I would say. Definitely, it is interesting to see it. I would say to be seeing how it has to be deployed and how you can test it out. But yeah, and appreciate you guys joining us today as well. And as Sergi has shared, the link to the presentation and the video on the chat box is there if you want to check it out. And yeah, that's it for today's session. And if you want to participate in the next session, I will share the link in the chat box. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you again, Sergi, for the session. Appreciate the time taken to be sharing your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you all. See you next time. Some other time. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.